What is up, y'all? It is yours truly coming back at you with another DPL Season 8 video. This is the slightly different video from what I've been uploading thus far. This is the post-draft power rankings for the Solar Split. Now, as you may or may not already know, we have 24 people total in our league, so we split the league into two different splits. One of them the Solar Split and the other one the Lunar Split. This is the Solar Powers rankings for the post-draft. This is the one that I am in. Shout out to CaffeineBoost. Since I am in this split, I can't possibly not be biased with my own rankings. I'd probably put myself at number 1 or something stupid like that. So CaffeineBoost provided the power rankings for this one. He also left me with a few notes that I will be reading to you as I go along these. With that being said, let's get right into it. Starting at the very bottom, number 12, Caffeine put the Catholic Church Chattots coached by the Hungry Bidoof. It has Megasablii, Zapdos, Chansey, Cresselia, Dugtrio, Toxapex, Chestnut, Fortress, Drudigon, Pignite, and Smeargle. Now, if you don't get the theme already for this team, it's stall. It is basically straight up stall. And the only comment he left for me on this one is, we all know why this thing is number 12. Now, to be fair, I do think the team itself deserves more credit than that. Definitely very bulky. Yeah, it is definitely very bulky. Some decent enough threats that could spiral out of control. Zapdos, Cresselia, those are definitely no slouches. This team could definitely get very annoying. It does have both forms of hazard removal. That's not something a lot of these teams here could say. Rapid Spin in Fortress and Defog in Zapdos, not to mention the Magic Bounce in Megasablii. The Dugtrio is Arena Trap, so that could potentially prove a lot of issues. And then Smeargle, a giant wild card, an underrated wild card, but a very wild card. No fairy types, which is certainly interesting. The Fire, Water, Grass core is also sort of decent, but Pignite, really? We had to go with Pignite? I mean, it's bad enough that there's already a fighting double stack with Chestnut, but Pignite? Seriously? Again, as someone who has admittedly played stall in the past, played as the stall player in the past, I do think this team deserves more credit, but I have definitely seen stall teams drafted better than this. Moving on to number 11, we have the Carolina Persians, coached by Mookie, aka Mewtwo. His team consists of Mega Ampharos, Kartana, Hydreigon, Mimikyu, Scizor, Togekiss, Primarina, Zygarde 10%, Bronzong, Ditto, and Ariados. The comments Caffeine left for me were the positives, including multiple options on how to support a win con, Volt Turn, Trick Room, Sticky Webs. That is both definitely very true. Ariados is a very underrated Sticky Webs user, but it is a Sticky Webs user, and there are definitely mons that could spiral out of control. Mimikyu, Kartana, even the likes of like Scizor and maybe Hydreigon. Most of these things have the potential to possibly clean it. Ditto, of course, being a giant wild card that could also spiral out of control, and there's enough support to go around. I would have liked to have seen a rapid spinner, particularly because you're relying a bit on those webs. Your highest mon being 115. And then your second highest mon being 109, it could definitely help with the mons that would go above 115. But other than that, as far as offense and the the support goes, it's definitely far from subpar. The negatives Caffeine pointed out is there's only one Stealth Rocks option, Bronzong. That is definitely true. Then I learned the hard way. You definitely want to have more than one Stealth Rocks option. He says as he only currently has one Stealth Rocks option on his team, but we'll get to that. Slower than average, several forms of speed control to compensate, but Ariados is rather lower tier Sticky Webs user. Couple of small speed tier gaps. I don't have the speed tiers pulled up in front of me, but I believe that. I think it drops off pretty heftily into the 95 after 109, unless Ariados is possibly faster. And no fighting type. No fire type either, which usually isn't important, but he does have two Pokemon, which are 4x weak to fire. Oh yes, Kartana as well. Yes, the triple steel type is definitely an issue. I would definitely make some trades. I don't know, probably the Scizor. I would definitely trade out there. There are a couple of decent fire types out there. Entei's still open, Darmanitan's still open. Even Volcanion is open. Even for tier A, I think there might be one or two fire types that are still available. I don't think Victini was taken in our split. There are definitely lots of options. As far as no fighting type goes, I personally consider that gravy, but fighting type is also a really decent offensive typing to have, as there's only two things. There are quite a few things that resist fighting, but the two major things being Flying and Ghost, and most of the time the fighting types have Knockoff and or Stone Edge respectively. So as I explained in other videos, fighting type is definitely very, very nice to have. Coming in at number 10, we have the Selim Selemenches, coached by Zephyros. He has Mega Glalie, that's the first time I've seen that in a while. Blacephalon, Latios, Crocodile, Lucario, Roserade, Vaporeon, Whimsicott, Diancie, Hitmonlee, and Altaria. Comments Delta left for this one is it is definitely a very unconventional team. Speed gaps definitely look decent enough. Yeah, I would add on top tier threats. Definitely very, very threatening. I have had the unfortunate pleasure of having to prep for this mon quite a few times, and it's a destroyer. This thing is definitely ridiculous, especially with the pool of mons that we have. But it may not be in everyone's eyes a particular round one pick, but it's certainly a prep maggot in my opinion. Latios also another prep maggot that can just do so many different things. Both forms of offense. It could be bulky. D-Dance is a possible set. It has quite a few support moves at its disposal, and even mons like Crocodile, Lucario, Roserade, you know, they may not have the cleaning potential or the wall breaking potential, but they can definitely spiral out of control. Crocodile having Moxie, Lucario having a setup on both sides of the aisle, plus Justify, plus maybe Inner Focus to prevent the fake outs or something like that. Roserade just having a crud ton of coverage options, especially with a base 90. Base 90 Technician hidden powers for just about anything. Some of the negatives Caffeine mentioned were Bird and Ghost spam hurt. Bird, the only two resists he have for Bird, I believe, or maybe even one, unless I'm forgetting something. I believe it's just, I know it's definitely Diancie, but I have to yeah, it is just, it really is just one resist, because Glalie can check it, but it does not resist a bird spam, so that's definitely an issue. And as far as ghost spam is concerned, again, only one mon resists it, being Crocodile. And speaking of Crocodile, there are very few rock options. Croc could be pressured into breaking them a lot. I believe there was only 2 rocks options, that being Diancie and Crocodile's probably going to have the better matchup most of the time, especially with lots of powerful steel types floating around this particular split. So yeah, that could definitely be an issue. That is a move slot that Crocodile could be used for something else. Not the best top speed. Whimsicott does top at 116, and I believe the next one is Latios at 108. It's not the worst thing in the world, but according to Caffeine, it could be better, and I don't disagree. And the last comment he mentioned was, "I'm not entirely sure what the team is built around." That could be that's a bit of a double-edged sword. Well, it is primarily bad. Don't get me wrong. It's good to have a central focus, but you also don't want to be too centralized. In this case, this went way back in the direction of uncentralized. There's just not a lot of synergy with the mon. There's definitely lots of double typings everywhere, with Latios and Alteria having double typings for absolutely no reason. Along with Roserade and Whimsicott, although Whimsicott can provide different forms of support that Roserade doesn't necessarily have. It is a bit of a mess synergy-wise, but I don't see a reason he couldn't make it work. It's definitely not it's definitely not the worst kind of broken, but it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he does with this team this season. Definitely different. The next team that's on this power ranking is number 9, the AC Milotics, coached by Zoroark. This team consists of Mega Manectric, Heatran, Landorus-Therian, Manaphy, Goodra, Breloom, Gardevoir, Alamabola, Golbat, Sableye, and Vivillon. I'm never gonna say that name correctly to save my own life. The only team in this split, and possibly the whole league, that has 3 A-tier mons. Most teams went for either 1 A-tier mon or 2 A-tier mons and a gold mega, but this one opted for 3 mons, and that could certainly be a good thing, but it could also certainly be way too top heavy. But for now, it doesn't seem that bad. Heatran, Landorus-Therian, and Manaphy are all really top tier threats. What Caffeine says about this: positives. Landorus-Therian and Manaphy are 2 very good mons to get, as I mentioned earlier. Dual Intimidate core. Landorus-Therian and Mega Manectric formed a very nice core in Generation XY/Oris, and it's good to see it back again. Definitely looking forward to see how Zoroark pilots those 2 mons in particular. Negatives: massive speed tier gap between Manaphy and Mega Manectric, and the fast attackers are the ones that will abuse that. 100 to 135 is a very huge speed gear tap. Speed tier gap. Bleh. Bleh. I would have definitely gone for something around base 110, maybe even base 115 if you could afford it. No rapid spin, that's also an issue. Not too many support options. Alamamola has Wish. Breloom has 4, which is also nice. Golbat can defog. No rapid spinner. Sableye is a decent support option, but it's also not the bulkiest thing in the world, so it's definitely going to be interesting finding opportunities to switch in and out, but I definitely have seen it done before. Other than that, it's a decent balanced mon. Manaphy and Alamomola, why? There's certainly other clerics that you could have gotten out there, but also on the other hand, the clerics were running out pretty quickly. With Audino taking round 8, round 9, a lot earlier than it usually does. The Villon is a waste of a mon. Yeah, maybe I'm speaking from experience. I haven't gotten swept by one yet, but Zorax does know how to use Vivillon pretty decently well. So I see why she would pick it up, but maybe it could have been better used on something else. No grounded poison with fairly weak hazard removal, weak to T-spikes. That's fair enough. Golbat is a poison type, but it's also not a grounded poison type. So T-spikes are relatively free, even though Golbat and Landorus-Therian could defog them away, although, to be fair, even though Landorus-Therian got defog, it doesn't typically use it a whole lot. It's a nice option to have, don't get me wrong, but it also doesn't use it a whole lot. I believe Vivillon also gets defog as well, don't quote me on that. But hazard removal her hazard removals aren't the worst thing in the world, but I could definitely see how they would be better. Definitely a balanced enough team. Fire Water Grass is decent enough. So is the Dragon Fairy Steel Core, Gudra and Heatran, providing the bulk while Gardevoir comes in and hits something pretty hard or revenge kills. There's definitely lots of options, and it's definitely not the worst use of a AAA team. So coming in at number 8, we have the Isla Nublar Tyrantrums, coached by prehistoric Pokemon, with Mega Gardevoir, Infernape, Diggersby, Milotic, Superior, B-Sharp, Galvantula, Tyrantrum, one of 2 mascot picks here, if I remember correctly, Aromatisse, Gliscor, and Quillfish. Definitely a very, very, very threatening team. Particularly centered around the Fire Water Grass core. Lots of versatility between these 3 mons. Milotic being a mon that I'm very, very familiar with, and a mon that got sniped for me really early on. Definitely not salty about that. What Caffeine says about the mon, what about the teams? He says, definitely a whole crap ton of a good Fire Water Grass core, fairly fast walls. Superior could be definitely bulky. Milotic is deceptively fast for the amount of bulk it gets. Base 80, I believe so. Aromatisse definitely, and no, Aromatisse is actually really slow. Excuse me, I thought it was fast now. I'm bad. Yeah, definitely. Fast walls is something nice to have, because that means it's not nearly as passive. It may not dish out as much damage, but at least you can do something before your opponent gets a chance to retaliate with something else. Some of the issues with the team: speed gap between Mega Gardevoir and Gligar/Quillfish. Given that the next offensive mon is Diggersby, this could definitely be exploited. Mega Gardevoir having a base speed tier of 100, I believe, and Gligar having a base speed tier mon of, and Gligar having, no, why are you doing this to me, Notepad? Gligar having a base speed of 85. Definitely some issues speed-wise to work with that could definitely be exploited. Slower, bulkier mons definitely have an opportunity to not have to worry about the possible speed creep and just shove it all into bulk. As far as top speed is also an issue, as Superior is the fastest mon here, and it's only 113 speed. Now, granted, this is somewhat compensated by the fact that Pre has Galvantula, which is a very potent Sticky Web's user, but I am also interested to see how he intends on keeping those on the field while trying to keep off the rocks and the other hazards on his side of the field without any other rapid spinner. And I think his only defog option anyway being Gligar. It'll certainly be interesting how he plays the hazards game. He could definitely hazard stack, but I don't think he has too many options to take hazards off of his field, which could definitely be detrimental. Aromatisse is useless. I wouldn't say completely useless. It is definitely a decent cleric, but on the same coin, as much as it usually isn't a good thing, not a lot of Praise Mons have a high HP stat, so a base 68 Wish for Mega Gardevoir isn't particularly the end of the world. It is more likely than not around 50% to a Mon that may not have any recovery, period. But that being said, I wouldn't say it's completely useless. Not a fan of Fairy Stab. No. What's his? Yeah. What's his fairy resist? What's his fairy resist? None. Because Infernape is neutral, B-Sharp is neutral, Tyrantrum is weak. Yeah. No, since Fairy doesn't resist Fairy, there's zero actual Fairy resistance. That could definitely be an issue if say, I don't think anybody picked up Sylveon on our split this season. But Spec Sylveon, even with the Pixelate nerf, could definitely do a lot of damage. Maybe a Calm Mind Clefable, or definitely lots of offensive Fairy types that could come in and basically reign free all over Freeze Team. That is definitely an issue that could be fixed. But otherwise, it's definitely a very threatening team. Definitely a well-balanced team. It'll be interesting to see how he pilots it this season, especially the hazards game, because as I mentioned, only Gligar and maybe B-Sharp. I don't think B-Sharp. I think it's just Gligar. But yeah, very limited forms of hazard removal. Gonna be interesting. Next up, number 7, we have the Rio SK drills coaching by John. Shout out to him. He was the one that made the art for this particular video, and without it, the presentation would definitely suck a lot worse. So shout out to him. Also shout out because he's the second of 2 coaches that drafted their mascot mon with Mega's Charizard Y, Excadrill, Tyranitar, Como-O, Slowbro, Decidueye, Heliolisk, Excelgor, Gramble, Audino, and Vileplume. Definitely a very well balanced team. The first thing that immediately pops out is the Sand Core. I personally prefer Hippowdon to be the Sand Setter, but by no means Tyranitar is no slouch, and he definitely makes up for the dual fighting weakness with the likes of maybe a bulky Zard, definitely Gramble, definitely Decidueye, definitely Slowbro, definitely Vileplume, which is an underrated mon. I've had the honor of trying out Vileplume for an off-season league, and no, it's not a bad mon at all. Strength Sap is definitely underrated. Caffeine notes that what does Caffeine notes? Because his notes are all over the place. He noticed multiple strategic options, double weather along with their abusers. In particular, that's another thing. Charizard Y and Heliolisk do form a bit of a pair, as Heliolisk benefits from solar power, more damage at cost of slightly more recoil, but hey, it's the price to pay if you want to be big and strong, like that young Heliolisk. Negatives: master speed tier gap between Excelgor and Heliolisk drops from 145 to 109. That is definitely an issue. Not the worst thing in the world, definitely would have helped to had something in between, maybe like a base 115 one or base 121. But it's definitely going to be an issue trying to outspeed that Excelgor. And that speed creep for Excelgor alone could definitely be a prep magnet. So it's not the worst thing in the world. I definitely see where he's coming from, but again, it's not bad. A little ice weak, but Slowbro should be a good enough resist. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Audino sucks. I don't think Audino sucks. It's one of the few viable clerics left, and I do think he picked it up early, but if he wasn't gonna pick it up, someone else will. So definitely a very well balanced team. As far as support goes, Decidueye is such a good support model. Excelgor and Granbull are also very underrated. Vileplume does have Spore, Strength, Sap. It definitely has shenanigans. Even Slowbro, which could pull some status spread from the likes of, I believe, T-Wave and Toxic and Scaldburns. Scaldburns always suck. But yeah, lots of viable options and lots of versatility with the team. I like it. Next team is actually my team. He mentions the elm crap named Darkrai. Screw you. The threatening top tier Mega Scizor, Mew, Tapu Koko, Crobat, Kyurem, Delamis, Heracross, Gastrodon, Incineroar, Kangaskhan, and Alola Raichu. Definitely threatening top tier mons. And that's good, because I like it that way. Mew can, as I'll link my draft analysis video for more detail on my own draft, but Mew can basically do anything. Tapu Koko has lots of pivots. As Caffeine mentions, you get a pivot, and you get a pivot, and everybody gets a pivot. Crobat, Incineroar, Mew, Mega Scizor. There are lots of options for Tapu Koko to switch in and out, and even another Volt Switch from Alola Raichu. I like that pair. I'll probably trade it out before the season's over, but I don't really have complaints about where I'm placed, though, because as he mentions, rock options is lacking a lot. Mew is basically my only rocks option. I'm going to change that really soon, but as of right now, Mew is my only rocks option. Speed gap between 130 and 110, and given up Raichu Alola is going to come out in Surge Surfer. It's a Sato 130-100 gap, which is just bad. I don't particularly agree with that criticism, especially since I have two Mons at 130, and I could put one of them as Adamant and outspeed the base 110s, and the base 115s have to be basically max speed Jolly, or max speed Nature, in order to outspeed me at Adamant. I can definitely mess around with that. So I don't think that's as valid of a criticism, but sure, we'll humor it. No grounded poison, so weak to T-Spikes, even though I've got at least two Mons that could easily take on T-Spikes. Maybe Mega Scizor and Crobat both knowing Defog, but hey, grounded poison is his deal. Weak to rock spam. I think I'm more weak to fire spam, but sure, rock spam. Definitely not the most perfect team I've ever drafted, but yeah, not bad. Not bad for my first season back of actually drafting the mod. After drafting my team, I had to sub back in last season after my leave of absence for a while. But hey, I'm back. I'm better than ever. I'm ready. I'm ready to go undefeated. Next team is the Fargo Ferrothorns by Lightshaver, the coach I just interviewed. His team consists of Mega Aggron, Starmie, Arcanine, Florges, Hexorus, Mamoswine, Raikou, Zoroark, Aerodactyl, Virizion, and Garbodor. I had to remember that monster name for a second. Delta mentions nothing missing as far as rolls go, healthy number of rock setters. I definitely agree. Mamoswine, Aerodactyl, Mega Aggron, definitely some of the better rock setters out there. I want to throw out the nice and decent Fire Water Grass core. Lots of versatility that can happen between those three mons in particular. Arcanine kind of being the bulkier bad boy of the three, and Starmie and Virizion wreaking havoc on both sides. Haxorus, Florges, and Mega Aggron is also a decent core, especially with Florges being able to, even though it's not the best Wish Pass in the world, but being able to Wish Pass into a Mega Aggron so it doesn't have to feel like it has to use Rest all the time is definitely great. Aerodactyl is such basically Furry Rocks every time, because Aerodactyl is going to scare something out more likely than not. Decent enough speed tiers and decent enough support options with Garbodor, knowing both spikes and T-spikes, and as we mentioned, multiple mons having dual screens and momentum with Volt Switch with Volt Turn. It's definitely a very deceptively threatening team, because Starmie isn't the highest tier A there, and Aggron isn't the highest Mega there, but you combine everything together, and that's just kind of the Shaver style. It may not seem as threatening on paper, but everything's just going to work together, and it's going to beat you. Negatives, dumb draft order. Talking about Raikou round 1. What else was he gonna round run? Starmie, I guess. Whatever. Weak to Ghost Bam. Sure. Zoroark is the only mon that's. And to be fair, Zoroark isn't. If you had to have only one Ghost Resist, Zoroark would probably be your best bet as the. As you can go in a Zoroark disguised as another mon, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll just click Shadow Ball again. Nope, it's a Zoroark. Knock off, you're dead. So, credit where credit's due. If I had to had only one, it would be Zoroark. Underwhelming defensive options, only real wall is Florges, which is fairly bad. That's not. I think he's not given Arcanine, and even to some extent Starmie, and even to some extent Raikou. I don't think they're giving those three mons enough credit. They can get bulky if they wanted to. Starmie, admittedly, not as much, but hey, well, it has recover, right? It can sit there. And also Mega Aggron. That's another thing. Mega Aggron with filter can sit in there and take some damage. I really think Caffeine underestimated it, but I also see where he's coming from. They're definitely a lot more offensive oriented team than I'm used to at a Shaver. The man of 14 mons. Next team is the West Flanders Weevils, coached by Aaron, with the Mega Gallade, Jirachi, Thundurus T, Nidoking, Tapu Fini, Mandibuzz, Silvally, Licky, Ribbonbee, Go-Goat, and Regirock. Caffeine mentions that round 6 Jirachi. Yeah, round 6 Jirachi. If I didn't take Mew, I probably would have taken Jirachi a lot earlier, to be fair, but I digress. Good core built around Mega Gallade. Only mentioning this because I drafted. Yeah, it's nice. I do think Jirachi kind of pairs up with it, and as a result, it is a little Ghost weak, but I say a little Ghost weak, but you have Bandabuzz and Licky, and even like normal type Silvally could definitely take care of it. Speaking of Silvally, giant wildcard mon. Its stats are definitely very underrated, and the fact that it has to take up a slot is also underwhelming. But I've tried it for a few games. It's definitely it can definitely be underutilized. Party shot's also nice. It's just a really sweet move. Other than that, he thinks some mons are just extremely underwhelming. Sylvie and Regirock, he give Regirock more credit than that. Regirock's underrated. Curse Regirock is underrated, but hey, there's also a reason it's tier E. Personally, I think the most underwhelming mon in there is Go-Goat, but eh. Rock options again fairly underwhelming. It does have Regirock, but you also have Jirachi and Nidoking, which may or may not want to run rocks all the time, so it forces you into Regirock, which he again claims is terrible. No ghost type, so normal spam could be annoying. Another thing I want to mention is that no fire type could also be annoying. I don't see a fire type. Yeah, no fire type, but Sylvie could take care of either one of those two. Other than that, it's definitely a very decent mon. A decent team. I'm getting tired. That's what I get for recording this really late at night. But definitely a very threatening team, and definitely not looking forward to facing this team anytime soon. Next up is the Greenland Guzzlords. I faced this team week 1, and Mega Absol, Tornadus D. Oh shoot, no, there's your spoiler. Mega Absol, Tornadus D, Zygarde 50, Blissey, Ferrothorn, Volcarona, Tentacruel, Cofagrigus, Mesprit, Slurpuff, Rotom Frost. There's not a single deadweight mon in here, and I have to face this team week 1. Brilliant. This is brilliant. I like this team. Caffeine mentions he's got basically nothing was particularly lacking as far as rolls go. Zygarde 50 and Volcarona are definitely prep magnets, as they could just set up and sweep right on you. Slurpuff I also think is an underrated prep magnet, as Belly Drum on Burden is not something you want to typically go off. You also got really nice support options. Ferrothorn is generally nice, so is Tentacruel. Cofagrigus can do some things. Mega Absol just runs around all over the place. Mega Absol is probably like my favorite Mega in the game. Just straight up. Not only for like art design, but also just like mechanically speaking. It's so underrated, and they can do so many things. Mega Alakazam's a close second, but Mega Absol's where it's at, guys. I definitely like. But as far as the negatives go, underwhelming rock options. Mesprit wants to roam free, and Ferrothorn may want to run spikes, so the rockers he has are potentially limiting. I suppose that's fair, but you've also got Blissey, and I believe you've also got Zygarde. There's more rocks here than Delta's willing to give credit for, but I'm willing to entertain that thought, man. I see it. No fighting type, which could have helped stuff like Tornadus-Therian offensively. Definitely. And Hurricane isn't going to hit rock types nearly as hard, and fighting types can check the ice types that threaten it out as well. And fighting types could have helped. The Tornadus-Therian could have been a little better supported. I don't disagree. Passive defensive options, vulnerable to Volt Turn and Stall Breakers. That's also not false, but I don't think Delta's been on the receiving end of an Explosion Ferrothorn before. I have. It's not fun. I'm kidding though. Fairly passive defensive options is also an issue, and you got to make sure you're not losing a whole lot of momentum when they're just sitting out there. Something else I do want to mention is that one of the few teams out there that actually has rapid spin and all of the hazards, which is absolutely brilliant in my opinion. I love me some rapid spin, and I love being able to keep my sticky webs and my T-spikes and my spikes and my rocks on the field. That's how you do it. I have to face this thing week 1. The next team, you've probably already seen it. The Honolulu Horseies, coached by Cyclone, with the Mega Camera of Celesteela, Clefable, Buzzwole, Gliscor, Nihilego, Tangrowth, Jellicent, Yuxi, Persian Alola, and Sliggoo. I think Delta overrated this team. I'm not gonna lie. I think Peplup should have been here, but let's see what he says. He says, notes are still all over the place. Really annoyingly good bulk. Celesteela, Clefable, Jellicent, Tangrowth, Yuxi, Gliscor. Yeah, that's how you draft bulk, y'all. And not bad. Definitely on the slower side, but not the worst speed tiers. I think Gliscor hits 85, which isn't by any means bad. It's either 85 or 80. I don't remember off the top of my head. And then the other mons are relatively slow, but there's enough space there to where maybe the bulkier mons want to go. Maybe I can speed creep it, only to find out that they speed crept your speed creep, so now they outspeed you and you just wasted a bunch of VVs. That's the funniest. I do think Sliggoo is overrated. I do think it's a little overrated. I think it was time. Maybe it would have been time for the young Guzzlord to come in. It is tier E now, I believe. So I would have killed to see Guzzlord. I'm sorry. I was just, and then maybe just Persian Alola, go into like, I don't know, maybe cleric, better cleric maybe. I don't know. I just really want to see Guzzlord. Guzzlord has such a cool design, but it's so garbage. But enough about that. Negatives: no rock resist, not entirely. Happy facing ghost and ice. That's right. Yeah, because the things that are supposed to resist rock don't really resist rock. Well, no. Nihilego isn't weak to rocks. Isn't it? Well, it's obviously not weak to rocks, but I think it was... Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, it's weak to ground and psychic, so Nihilego is resistant to rock, but it's also non-resistant to just about anything, just on the sheer basis of its physical bulk. So, yeah, either way, slow, very, very slow. I don't disagree. I do believe it hits 115 with Persian Alola, but it's just overall a very, very slow team, and you're not going to see Persian Alola brought all that much. Yeah, it does reach 115, and I believe Nihilego is next up, which you'll see a lot more of, but it doesn't hit that magical 115. It only hits 103, unfortunately. Speed gaps above the faster mons. I think it goes like 103 and then what, 95 with Yuxi? I think so. It is a little bit of a speed gap, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Or maybe Yuxi's 85. No, Yuxi's 95, so yeah. The speed tiers aren't the worst thing in the world, but I see where he's coming from. Underwhelming wall breaking options, that's also true. Although Buzzwole could pretty easily wall break if it wanted to. But yeah, definitely a very interesting, but again, well executed team. I'm very interested to see how it works out this season. I face this week 3, so hooray, that's going to be great. And then number 1 is the 7M Sceptiles, coached by Sgir. with the Mega Slowbro, Tapu Bulu, Nidoqueen, Skarmory, Snorlax, Mienshao, Rotom Heat, Umbreon, Lycanroc Day, Noivern, and Cryogonal. Definitely well deserving of the top spot, in my opinion. You may top of the top with Tapu Bulu just being top, kills everything on sight. Wall breaker. You got your walls with Skarmory and Mega Slowbro and to some extent Snorlax, although it can also do other things. You got Rotom Heat and Mienshao running out your full turn. Umbreon is there for cleric purposes. You got your dedicated hazards and hazard removal. Definitely a well-balanced team. The only issue is the primary issue is with a team like that where everyone has to roll. It gets kind of easy to predict who's gonna get what, but I trust SGR enough as a more than competent coach to work some way around that. Caffeine notes that not that weak to type span some other drafts are. 2+ resist to everything. Good bulky options. Speed, unfortunately, it does have a speed gap between Cryogonal and Rotom Heat. Abused by base 100s, that is true. Mildly underwhelming hazard options. I'd say underwhelming hazard removal, but I don't think, because Skarmory could run rocks pretty easily, and so could Nidoqueen, and even Lycanroc Day. I don't think it's underwhelming at all. But yeah, removal is a little bit underwhelming because one half of them, you have one Rapid Spinner and one Defogger. No, two Defoggers, and 2/3 of them are weak to rocks. I forget the Rotom forms got Defog now. And screw Umbreon. He just hates clerics. Oh, Caffeine Boost. He hates his clerics that are not named Clefable. Unless Sylveon's a lot cheaper, then he also likes Sylveon. So yeah, that is your DPL Season 8 post-draft rankings for the Solar Split. I faced the top 3 teams for the first 3 weeks. I faced Piplup week 1, I faced S-Tier week 2, and I faced Cyclone week 3. Oh, I hate this. The good news is that means I'll have plenty of time to catch up after I catch this 0-3. But we'll see. Anything can happen, right? Yeah. Until then, this is yours truly signing off. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!